What's up, everyone? Saw the headline here, didn't get into the story, but I wanted to do a deeper dive and give this a look and see if, at first glance, it is what it seems, because if so, this would certainly be something that is a shitty story, and a story for which nobody's going to care. I care, but you know what we're talking about, and you know who we're pointing the finger at in terms of where are her marches, where are her fundraisers, where are the politicians coming out on her behalf? Probably nowhere, because all of those people I alluded to, by and large, would support the criminals. But let's get into it, though, and see if it's what I think it is. Woman who testified against New York gang members who shot her is hunted down and executed by them for snitching. 4 members of Brooklyn-based Ninedee Gang were indicted for racketeering and the murder of former federal witness Shatavia Walls. Details of her murder were released today by the Eastern District of New York. Walls was gunned down by 2 men near a walking path at the Pink Houses in East New York on July 7th, 2020. She tried to run away, but inadvertently stumbled into the path of an accomplice who also shot her. Walls died of her wounds 10 days later. We'll have to see if they explain what happened there. We assume surgery, maybe a coma, a lot of ICU time. It was after she altercated over fireworks on July 4th that 4 Ninedee Gang members began plotting her murder, according to federal prosecutors. Now remember, this is Daily Mail. It's written by somebody from the UK, so the words may not translate how we're used to. With that in mind, let's give it a read. It's not a long article because, as you know, somebody like this is hardly worth the words being put on the internet for a lot of people, which is really unfortunate. So I'm reading right here. In a grand jury indictment unsealed at a Brooklyn federal court on Monday, prosecutors alleged that Walls' murder was carefully planned and carried out by members of the Ninedee Gang. This story was written on August 9th, so when they're talking about Monday, they're referring to August 9th. She was shot by a Ninedee Gang member in 2017 and appeared as a federal witness in a subsequent 2019 court case to that shooting. So it's deeper than the fireworks that they talked about here. She was shot by a gang member in 2017 and appeared as a federal witness in a 2019 case. So obviously you would think she's living in a bad area where she's coming across a lot of shitty individuals. Walls was bullied and intimidated at the New York Housing Association block where she lived, with posters plastered over its walls condemning her for standing up for herself. Matters came to a head on July 4th, 2020, when Walls clashed with the gang again for setting off fireworks at the housing complex. And this is Shatavia right here, 33 they say. There's a scene, Pink Houses, a wonderful community. Apparently not. And who's doing anything about the apparent rampant gang activity within this housing authority project? At the time of her testimony, she faced public humiliation in her building after gang members posted flyers that labeled her a rat throughout the complex. It was after an altercation over fireworks on July 4th that 90 members, Malik Miller, 27, who called Walls a snitch and fired a gun into the air, Quentin Green, 20, and Cheyenne Fernandez began plotting her murder, prosecutors said. Green and another unnamed suspect, who was a juvenile at the time, decided to carry out the plot 3 days later, according to court documents, and you remember the timeline above. July 4th, the fireworks. July 7th, 2020, was when the incident occurred where she ultimately was killed. The pair waited at the Pink Houses all afternoon and through the early evening for the opportunity to shoot Miss Walls, changing their clothing throughout the day in order to disguise their appearance. Prosecutors wrote in a memo filed Monday, urging a federal judge to order 2 members of the gang detained, pending trial. When Walls emerged from the building in the complex at about 9:25 p.m., Green came up from behind, exchanged words with her, then began firing a gun at her. The feds said Green missed and hit an innocent bystander. Okay, well, prosecutors said Walls then sprinted away from Green, who gave chase while continuing to fire at her, at one point leaping over a fence to get a clear shot, according to the court documents. In the chase, Walls' fate was sealed when she unknowingly ran towards a second shooter the unidentified juvenile suspect who opened fire, prosecutors said. Green then caught up and gunned down Walls behind one of the buildings on Linden Boulevard, according to prosecutors. After the brutal murder, a number of Ninedee members hid out in Queens to avoid increased police scrutiny at the Pink Houses. There you see a collage here, a memorial, posters, a vigil dedicated to Shatavia. It's put up by our friends and family. Shatavia again. Fernandez, Green, and Miller were each indicted on the murder in aid of racketeering charges and the slaying and could face life in jail or the death penalty. A fourth suspect, Kevin Wint, was charged with accessory after the fact for helping them hide out in Queens after the murder, according to court papers. And you bet he's probably going to be singing, right, to get a deal. It's accessory after the fact, but still, you know they're going to squeeze him. In the days after Walls' death, her heartbroken mother told the Post that her daughter approached the gang members on July 4th after Borough President Eric Adams, Eric Adams, there's a name we know, urged Brooklyn residents to talk to neighbors about fireworks rather than call police. She watched the news. She heard it, Helen Testagros said at the time, referring to Adams' advice. It was probably in the back of her mind. Attorney information for the suspects was not immediately available. That's the end of the article there. We'll see the comments, but Eric Adams, remember him? If you don't, he just recently won the Democratic primary. A lot of shenanigans going on there. Interesting that, okay, I get where he's going. Try to work it out. You think or you hope that your neighbors are logical and respectful. Oh, well, but let's keep in mind, though, that when Eric Adams puts out this information, and I'm not taking a shit on the guy, it's not like he can project these kind of things to happen, but his life, a longtime law enforcement officer, is different than the life of somebody who's living in this housing project. He most likely lives in a high-end neighborhood. I believe he was on the force for 20-something years. I'd imagine that he's accumulated a great deal of wealth over that time. So for him, and especially being somebody in law enforcement who can play that card, to go up to one of his neighbors and say, hey, you know, maybe tone it down. Let's have a peaceful, loving community here. Great advice if you live where he lives, or you live where I live, or if you live where a lot of you live. Not great advice when you have rampant gang activity within a community. Whoops, Eric. Like I said, it's not like he knew, but what works in nicer communities for people in law enforcement with a great deal of wealth doesn't always work for individuals like Shatavia, as you found out here, and she found out the hard way. Has Eric Adams said anything on it? I haven't looked into it. Might be something he'd want to address. Maybe. This is what they voted for, no protection for the innocent. Collectively, sure. And I've said the same thing. I've said defund bad police. I've said if they get rid of all the police in Minneapolis and all these other big cities, Philly, LA, NYC, Portland, Seattle, the list goes on and on and on. Even though I've said those things, there are individuals like this that are out there seemingly trying to do the right thing, that get caught up in the bullshit. And what I was alluding to earlier in the video, it's what you all, people who watch my videos, are wise enough to get this. There are individuals out there, and I've said it over and over again when I'm dishing on shitty commie organizations or our own little domestic terrorist groups like BLM and Antifa. It's easy to take a shit on police, or it's easy to take a shit on individuals you know won't fight back. But this is why you won't see them out in the streets going at these gang members. It's easy to say fuck the police. I could say fuck the police right now. I can put a little fuck the police clip into this video. And you know what's not going to happen? A gang of police isn't going to come and knock down my door. Right? Fuck the police, fuck the police. Ooh, so brave, so stunning and brave, right? ACAB, ooh, I'm so stunning and brave. Let me throw some fireworks at the police building in Portland. Oh, I'm so fucking brave. Oh, wow, I'm such a badass. Wait till I tell all my friends how much of a badass I am. You know what they won't be out here calling out? Legitimate, real gangsters out here. Real motherfuckers that would end people's lives over things like this. That's who they won't call out. Pussies. They're scared. And they're pussies. But I will say, in a lot of ways, BLM, Antifa, they're smart because they realize that they're pussies. She was out here, and I don't know the full story about the other things, but if you have somebody out here who's trying to make the neighborhood a better place, that's somebody that seems respectable to me. I don't know. Maybe she had a criminal record. Maybe she was horrible. Maybe she beat her kids, I don't know. But if you have somebody who's not afraid to step up to the real criminals in society and actually call out the real threat to our democracy, then that's somebody I can respect for that act alone. Again, like I said, I don't know much more about her other than what's here, but I can respect what she tried to do. Like, stop snitching, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, how are you ever going to have a nice community if the term stop snitching is more encouraged than trying to work to have a better community? Great job, de Blasio. Democrats failed to protect this woman. Democrats don't care about anyone. Why aren't all these monsters in jail? Where? They couldn't reoffend and murder. Wow, poor woman. Shame on the feds. She needed to be placed under protection. They failed her, and now this sets precedent for future cases. People will not want to cooperate. One step forward, 500 steps back. My name is Joe Biden, and I am responsible for the actions in this article. Okay, we'll leave it with that previous comment because that touches on something is that she was previously under federal protection. Somebody who has worked to help in the past than to just kind of be left out to dry like that. And I get they can't do 24/7 monitoring for the rest of her life. I get that. But it's problematic. And I think about what somebody like Base Logic would say when he would see a story like this. And that's just because I watch a lot of his videos. And mainly he talks about the children in communities getting gunned down, but the innocents. What would he say? He talks a lot about the criminal element and how if you don't deal with these shitbags, then you're going to keep having these kind of situations. Now, as I said, he talks a lot about the young kids. And that's fair, but I think this is something that he would say, fuck them as well, and fuck these criminals. So I'm saying the same. Fuck them. She tried to do things the right way, and unfortunately, she was let down. Be that by the system, be that by the community. You can point your finger at the Democrats, you can point your finger at New York City politicians. Point your finger where you want, but as I said, she's not going to get marches. GoFundMe, maybe she got one back then. Is Floyd Mayweather paying for her funeral? George Floyd's family, they got what, $60 million in GoFundMe and lawsuits. Can they spare a little cheddar and help set up a monument in her honor? Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Let me know your thoughts. Be well, everyone.